Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You are on the sidelines with the sideline guys. And today, I have the pleasure, the honor of being joined by a man that is cool, cooler than being cool. Some would even call that ice cold. My guy, motherfucking Cole. How's it feeling, brother?
One letter away from the word cold itself. I'm doing good. How you doing, my guy?
Yes, sir. It's only right that we're both doing swell. It's beautiful. It was a beautiful day that we had out here in Pennsylvania. So I am excited to see what is in store for us in this night. But of course, if I got my guy Cole back on the show, you already know that this is a NFL edition of the Sideline Guys. And of course, our third NFL draft preview before we get into our mock draft in anticipation of Thursday night's big day. And man, I know I'm super pumped. I know you're super excited as well. But before we get into the rest of our top fives for the various position groups that we need to rifle through, my favorite thing about talking with my guy Cole in pre-show was he thought that somehow I was going to allow this show to exist without some form of trivia, right? And I had to put my guy on the spot, right? Because he put me on the spot both times, right? I didn't know where he was going to come with this trivia. So, you know what? I was reaffirmed by my original suspicion that you had told me you were a left handed, a southpaw, right? So to speak. So, my trivia question for you is as follows: Ken Stabler and who else are the only left-handed quarterbacks to win the Super Bowl? Cole, you're on the clock, brother.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It should be Steve Young.
Let's go. Let's go. Yes,
I know my
sir.
lefties.
Yes, sir. You got it right. Honestly, I made it a little easy on you. I should have switched those names,
Yeah,
but
you
I'm still
should.
confident you probably would have got that one. So love that we got that right off the top. I didn't get to stump you. Hey, it was fun trying to spring the trap on you nonetheless. But while I got you, Cole, why don't you remind the people where they could find you?
Instagram and Twitter, the_real_J Cole.
You heard the man, calm and clear as ever. You can find me at Negrong MMA on Twitter as well as the TikTok machine, Chris Negron underscore on Instagram. But make sure you're following the brand at OTS Media Co. on all social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube. Now, this episode is brought to you by Shroom Bar, the protein mushroom bar. It's made up of not psychedelics, but four powerful mushroom adaptogens: lion's mane, cordyceps, reishi, turkey tail, all wrapped up in a delicious bar with 12 grams of protein to give you the energy to get you through all of your intense workouts throughout the day and give you that boost to finish off all the other things you got on your agenda. So make sure you try out Shroom Bar, use the code OTS, and get 30% off your first order. Make sure you're supporting the show in that way, and we really appreciate it. But with all that being said, it's only right that we move on to our top five linebackers of the 2025 NFL draft class. I'm excited to see where you're leading the board on this one. Who's your number one linebacker?
Well, I didn't want to cheat and use Jalen Walker again. So I went on ahead and took my guy from the Tide, Jahad Campbell.
Yes, sir. So, what about Jahad Campbell makes him your number one overall?
Well, freak athlete off the board. He had the third fastest 40 time in the combine. On top of it, all these linebacker sizes are going to look fantastic, but he is one of the tallest at 6'3". 244 is a bit on the heavier side compared to the rest of these linebackers that we'll probably talk about. And blitzes off the edge. He could be an edge guy, but he's definitely more of an inside box guy. Excellent awareness in coverage. The amount of times that he had pass deflections and interceptions for a linebacker, kind of what seals the deal for me.
Great shouts. You matched the production with the way he tested at the combine, too. I thought he looked super athletic there. And also, there's some rumors he's injured through that as well, right? So you still like to see what you're getting out of the player regardless. I agree. Couldn't agree with you more. He's my number two, but god damn it, I cheated, right? It's okay. I cheated, ladies and gentlemen. My number one, of course, I went with the guy you just named. You just name dropped him for us. My guy, Jalen Walker out of Georgia. I think it was easy to make this call just because I feel like this was the more natural position he played, obviously, considering who he played alongside, someone that we spoke about in our last episode, right? But all things considered, I think the level of athlete speaks for itself, right? I think the freak nature of everything he has to offer. I think he's still developing as far as being a hybrid back and being someone that could play either edge or at linebacker, but I think he's going to excel whatever he decides to play on. Do you agree, even though he's not on your list?
Oh, I 100% agree. I definitely would have put him at one if I was going to include him, but I wanted to show my love to the other linebackers. Also, shout out to last episode. I definitely misspoke. Shamar Stewart went to Texas A&M. He did not go to South Carolina. That was just Kyle Kennard. So disregard. I had one hiccup. You know, I'm not perfect, but I try to be as close as I can.
If I gave myself a correction segment, right, we'll be here 40 minutes a week, goddamn it, because I'll be fucking up. But it's okay. My guy Cole's always dropping wisdom. So we'll let it slide. We'll let you rock on that one, Cole. So next up, it's only right. This was your number one on the board. It was my number two, Jihad Campbell out of Alabama, for all the reasons we talked about earlier. So it's only right, Cole. You give us your number two.
I got Carson Schweisinger from UCLA. Dude is a menace. 6'2", 225, blitzing up the A gap, causing centers issues. He delay blitzes. Like, I don't know if I want to say almost near perfect, but the timing is impeccable. On top of the fact that his drive, he was a former walk-on, to the point that he is now going to be in the third best linebacker if you want to include Jalen Walker. But I mean, to be included in the top three and be a former walk-on, and he still covers well.
Dude, that was the biggest part for me on the film. I thought this guy's a blazer at the position. This guy's fast and could really provide that coverage plus that's always good to see. Yeah, I think he's the consensus guy to be in this spot at number three. And I love that little asterisk, right? You love a guy with some dog in him, and you know you're going to get that out of Carson. So I love that he's your number two because he's my number three. So we're falling in line
Yeah,
here,
it makes
ladies and
perfect
gentlemen.
sense. I just didn't want to use Jalen Walker. Oh, also because he was a former walk-on, special teams warrior.
Oh, yep. Great
Oh yeah,
shout too,
blocked
right?
punt. If I remember correctly, he blocked a punt. I almost blocked two more, but I know for a fact that he blocked one, and I think ran it back.
Yep, showing up for every single down. It really comes across on the tape for sure. I'm just glad you said his name first, right? So I didn't have to try to butcher it. You got a Schwinger.
I've heard, yeah, Schwinger. I've heard Schweisinger, Schweisinger. I was like, no, we're gonna go with Schweisinger.
Yes, sir. It sounds better than I could have went. So that's my number three. That's your number two. What's your number three?
My number three is out of UGA, since we were talking about Jalen Walker before. This is Smile Munden Jr. After, Jalen Walker, Jihad Campbell, and then Schweisinger, and I got to say it again, it kind of has a little bit of a drop off in the linebackers. Still talent, full of talent, but you start to see more of they're good in certain packages, and you see more obvious weaknesses in these guys. But I got Smile Munden Jr. from Georgia, 6'3", 235, from Paulding County, Georgia. Coached against him when he was young and he was in high school before Kirby Smart got a hold of him. He was just good at sideline to sideline, which he's still phenomenal. Just using his speed coming off the edge. If you try to run the ball away from him, he was catching it down, tackle for a loss. So instead, we just ran the ball right at him. That's what they did on offense. I say we. That's what they did on offense. He wasn't on the offense side of the ball, so I really can't say we did anything to him. But we also had the running back that's currently going to probably start for Kentucky as a sophomore, Jamarion Wilcox. He's the one that was just bell cow. Watch out for that name in the next coming years for the draft, by the way. Let's see what else I got. Oh, his tracking, but that's sideline to sideline stuff. And then I played versus a team I coached.
Yes, sir. I love to when you throw in those little anecdotes there. I love to make it a little bit personal because those things do come off, right? When you have a certain connection with any of these guys. I love that our list again a little bit different here too. As I move on to my number fourth pick, I got Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma. I think someone that's a little bit under heralded, but I think deserves the spot, deserves that the fourth accolade. I think he showed to be a productive tackler, as well as getting 34 and a half tackles for loss as a 3-year starter. I think that's a great place to build off of as a foundation. And 6'3", 233, I love his intangibles in that way. I think this is somebody who can really maybe end up getting drafted around the late second, third round, but could really produce for a team in the NFL. So give me Danny Stutzman.
That's crazy. You said Danny Stutzman because my number 4 is Danny Stutzman. I just listed on here your prototypical linebacker, early 2000s kind of vibe. Want to pop you in the head all day. Gives me Kuechly vibes, even though he's not necessarily your coverage guy. But when it comes to everything running downhill and in the box, he's going to see you somewhere. You get a running back is not going to be able to avoid him. Offensive lineman getting to the second level is going to have a hard time finding him to get to block him.
Yep. All great shouts. I love that our lists are lining up, right? Because even though we had a different number 1 because of that, we still end up at the same 4. So finally, I'll give my 5 first. I've got Jeffrey Bassa out of Oregon. I think this one was honestly a little bit tough. I think there was a lot of different players that I could have went with here, but I really like Jeffrey Bassa's upside. I think there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to the way he works down the line of scrimmage. But I think ultimately, I think he's a real fast, explosive athlete. And I think being built at the right situation, he's another guy that I could see being super productive in the NFL. So give me Jeffrey Bassa.
That's a good one. It wasn't even on my top 5 or in my honorable mentions, but that's a good pull. Didn't even think about looking into that guy. I did look at some of his highlights, but my number 5 I've got from Ole Miss, Chris Paul Jr. Chris Paul Jr.
Great name, phenomenal
Yes.
name.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So same thing when it comes to like Smile Monday, and very good at sideline to sideline, maybe not necessarily downhill is their strong suit. Like I want to hit you in the A gap and pop you with some blood, but great zone drops. Not as technical as the guys previously. He's more raw, but some guys in the NFL coaches like that. They want to modify. It makes me think of like Mike Green, but at a linebacker stance. Can become a serious problem as he develops, is what I put.
I love that. Before we get out of here, I got an honorable mention that I got to give a shout to. Shout out Demetrius Knight out of South Carolina. Really good. Someone that I like seeing the way he punches the ball out. I think he got 3 forced fumbles. Just once again, a ball hawk. And I think at the next level, you see the way those players could impact moments, right? You saw it in the Super Bowl. If you could get that one play that could change the game, it really could give you a career. Goddamn, it could give you another contract. So there's a lot of big upside to that. So that's my honorable mention. Do you have any, Cole?
He's one of my honorable mentions on top of Barrett Carter for Clemson, and then Jamon Dumas Johnson from Kentucky. He was at Georgia, had transferred, and then basically became the guy at Kentucky.
I fucking love it, man. I think this is an underrated position in this draft class because it's super deep. Ayo, no pause. And I think ultimately, when it comes to the second night of the draft, I think a lot of these guys are going to be getting their name called. And when it's all said and done, we're going to be like, wow, a lot of productive players out of this group from this draft for sure. Next up, we get to move on. We have the pleasure of moving on to safety, right?
Because my favorite position.
Last week, we were foaming at the mouth about certain prospects in this player group. So I got to ask you right off the top. You started first last time, but I don't care. I'm making you go twice. Who's your number 1 safety in the 2025?
You know who it is because we talked about them sneaking in. Everybody says it's going to be one guy, but I got that one guy at number 2. Number 1 for me is Nick Emenwari, man, from South Carolina, if I remember correctly. South Carolina's got a lot of guys in this draft. I come to notice Kyle Kennard and all the other guys.
Oregon too. See, I was looking back at that. I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. These guys went far, right? But you would think you would have went further with all the names.
Well, South Carolina makes sense too because they had a chance at the playoffs. It was between like them, Bama, SMU, and then that whole fiasco happened. But let's talk about Nick Emenwari, man. Kind of gives me Cam Chancellor vibes. I don't know what it is. 6'3", almost 230 pounds at safety, and you're moving like that. He's huge. His nickname is the Force for a reason. His play recognition, remarkable. He might not be the fastest because of his size, even though he moves great, but because of it, his maybe I wouldn't say track speed. I may actually look at his stuff real quick. Oh, what am I kidding? He ran a 4.38. Scratch that. So not only has he got the track
40-inch
speed,
vert.
he looks even faster like on field. And so the center of the field, middle of the field, he could be the lone safety over the top. He can be a safety rolling down in the box. He's so big. His in and out of breaks very well. The best DB, including corners, outside if you want to say the Heisman Trophy winner. I think he's the best DB overall when it comes to breaking in and out on routes.
I love that you add that because my favorite stat about him you didn't touch, which I think is so important, especially at the college level, right? This is a guy who's led his team in tackles for 2 out of the 3 years he played. I think that's a really underrated stat for that position group. Not what you expect at the next level, right? If that's where you're at, you're in a tough spot. If your safety's the guy making all the tackles, but at the end of the day, we see he could put the boom on guys on top of, like you said, having that breakaway athleticism to break up passes and just be a havoc on defense in general. This is somebody that I love the way he's risen up boards because this was my original sleeper, right? I feel like now people have woken up in the last 2 weeks, especially after the combine. But this was somebody that I was already high on just with the tape and then seeing the way everything else blew up. I'm excited for him, and I think he's going to end up in a spot a little higher that makes it possible for my Ravens to draft him, sadly.
No, don't forget he can take him back to the house. If it wasn't for that bullcrap penalty that didn't exist, they would have beat LSU, and then that would have probably put them in the playoffs.
It's a great shout. Yep, he ran back, I think, 2 out of his 4 interceptions. So you love that ratio, right? If you could get 50%, that's a great spot. So yep, both Nick Emanwari out of South Carolina. I think we can both agree. We're going to Georgia next, right? My
Yeah,
number
spot
2
on. Yep.
safety is Malachi Starks. I'll talk a little bit about him before I let you dirt out because I know you're coming with the wisdom, Cole. I love the fact that once again, this is somebody who's a 3-year starter, but consistent, right? It's not like he's breaking out just in his junior years, someone who showed flashes and was a productive player in the position for 3 years, which is important. I think I just like the way he reads the receiver, right? He always knows where he needs to be in those positions. And I think when it comes to covering, you could argue in some circumstances, if you're playing zone, I think he might be the more experienced guy, right? Between him and Nick Emanwari. But I like his prospects as well. I think this is once again another position that's sneaky good in this draft. So interested to see if you agree with me on that one. But I think both of these guys have potential to be top 20 picks in this draft. I know it's a little tough because the needs might not be there. But as far as talent, I think those guys are that.
Yeah, at that point, it's like best available or what you need most. And I mean, we'll talk about that when we get to our mocks later. But main thing I said for Malachi Starks, you're talking about he always finds the receiver. I wrote down locates the ball very well. When his awareness of not only where the receiver is, but where the ball placement is going to be put, so that way he can get either his hands on it or get his hands through the receiver's hands. He also runs the reverse J very well. That's a very technical term, but you just imagine the letter J, and if there's a run play, you're going to run the opposite direction of it. The reason why is typically it's against running quarterback teams. And so if you watch film versus Bama, that's what they did because of Milrow. Now, of course, Milrow did really well, but on the runs that Milrow got stopped is because Malachi Starks was in a position to run that reverse J and kind of met him on like a 2-3 yard gain.
I love it. This next part, I don't know if you agree with me here. We're gonna find out once I give my third player, right? But I think this one was hard for me just because you're dealing with someone who I eventually ended up picking as my third that we didn't really get to see play last year, which is kind of a tough position to be in. You could argue if this guy might have came out or been in a situation to come out last year, he might have even been considered one of the number one,
I know
probably the
exactly who
best
you're talking
safety
about.
prospect coming out of the draft. So for my number 3 prospect, I'm going with Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State. I think this is someone who, although he's not really shown to be a ball hawk just yet as far as his work and coverage, I think he's someone that's always playing downhill, so to speak, right? He's always finding a way to stop plays short. And I think he's just someone that's going to be able to make up a lot of mistakes on the front end of any defense just because of how he reads the field. I think the question with him is his athleticism, right? I think all things considered, some of the tape, man, he looks like he can be a top level safety at the NFL level. But I don't know, man. This is the biggest crapshoot here, right? I think if he ends up in a good position, in a good spot where he has good mentorship, I think he can really be a quality player. But I think there's also a big what if, right? You could end up in a situation where you continue having to deal with nagging injuries, and that's a tough spot to be, especially when you're playing on the back end. But I like the prospect. I like the player. Looking forward to seeing what the NFL thinks, because I think this is one where he could either go surprisingly high or fall even into day three, right? Like there's a lot of different ways this could shake out. But what do you think, Cole?
I will say a low ceiling, or I mean, a low ceiling, a high ceiling or a low floor. It could be high risk, high reward. The upside is fantastic, but like you're saying, the nagging injuries can cause issues. Well, I'll shout out to Penn State for at least having someone who I'm going to throw in an honorable mention, having two safeties that are going to be most likely drafted uh, this coming draft. But at my number three, and I swapped my 3 and 4 here. I had went back and forth and just looking at tape over and over again. But I have Andrew Makuba from Texas. Uh, Makuba, 6 foot 190, flies downhill. I had to write down flies downhill. I mean, all these safeties most likely are going to be flying downhill, but for some reason he's just determined. Kind of looked like just a smaller Nick Emenwari, just wanting to go hit somebody. But he high points the ball very well. I want to say he might have had the highest vert. No, that Nick Emenwari had the highest vert, of course, but his high point is ridiculous. On top of the fact that his touchdown saving tackles in the run. And I think that's a key factor for a lot of these safeties that we're going to talk about is they were like Nick Emenwari had to lead the team in tackles, which is normally not a good sign because of your linebackers. But in the case of that lets you know these safeties are going to be making touchdown saving tackles. And in the league, that's big because a field goal versus a touchdown, that's 4 points of a difference.
Great shout, and I agree. I feel like he's the more prototypical size of a safety, right? When you're looking at bumping up to the next level, I'm a little interested to see how he puts on weight, right? I feel like he can be a little bit small for the position, but I do think I really love, like you said, the way he gets downhill on guys, but also just how quick he attacks blockers. I think he's someone that could really get off of blocks easy and then put himself in a position to make secondary tackles, which, like you said, Ran, any little way you could make yourself slippery, get away from that first blocker, and just get a hand on the guy. It makes such a big difference on being able to break up that play if you could stop momentum at all, right? Let alone be able to actually make the tackle if you get that close. So, shout out to my fourth safety on the board, Andrew Makuba. Had to give my shouts as well. So, who is your fourth?
My fourth is I had to go back and forth, but I got Xavier Watts from Notre Dame as my number 4. Um, that's more of your prototypical size for him. They're basically the same height, but he's got about 15 pounds on him. The biggest thing that made it knock him down to my 4 versus 3 is just most of his interceptions were all off of deflections from receivers. So it was really the receiver dropping the ball, and he just happened to be at the right place at the right time. So it wasn't necessarily that he was forcing pass deflections into interceptions or anything like that. So catches were bobbles. His interceptions, almost all of them. But his safety blitzes is what made me like him a lot. Teams that want to run like a 3 safety look, or a teams that have like really athletic linebackers that can actually drop into like deeper coverages. I can see him going to a specific team like that. It kind of gives me like Tampa Bay Buccaneer vibes, like the way Antoine Winfield gets used. Uh, that's kind of what I see. And then what's the last thing? Oh, he's still a great center fielder, even though I was talking about him blitzing right off the edge or right through the middle. His right place, right time for also being in the middle of the field and jumping on corner routes is fantastic.
I love that you specified that last part too, because when you hear someone close a speed generally quick, you would assume that that's a part of the package, right? But especially at that position, a sneaky, tough spot to be in, because no matter what, you're at a disadvantage being back there, right? There's a layered sort of attack by default, right? So you gotta be able to make that decision and know where to really be, right? Because you know there's going to be some kind of read to try to get you to look off where and making that decision fast enough that you're in the right spot is important. So great shouts. Also, I love the way this all lined up because that is my number 5 safety of the class, Xavier Watts. I really do like his upside. I think he's someone that I would have liked to see produce a little bit more. And I know that's hypocritical, right? Coming off of what I was saying about some guys who played 3 years compared to two. But I think ultimately my favorite thing is instinctually he always finds his way to cut guys off of routes. So, like you said, cutting down big plays, even if he's not necessarily making a stop for a loss, right? But he's taking the right angle to put you in a position to either push you out of bounds or get a stop in a situation where otherwise you might be headed straight for a touchdown. So I think that breakaway, how about this? Not breakaway speed, breakaway intelligence, right? You gotta know which angle to take, and I think he's really good at that, and that's why he ended up being my top 5. So who is your 5th?
Some would say breakaway wisdom. At my number 5 is Kevin Winston Jr. Just full circle. Got the same 5, just a different order. Almost the usual between the two of us, almost.
Mm-hmm.
I just got here. Big hits. A little bit on late to rallies, but late to rally is normally something you're going to get out of a safety unless he's got to fly through the alley immediately. That's what we teach them. Through the alley, late to rally. That's catchphrase, make it easy for the high schoolers, when you're coaching them. His breaking speed might be a little slower. Obviously, we got less film, had to use film from the season prior because of his injury. And obviously, that's why I have him lowered down as well. And then a lot to see still. That's the main thing. There's going to be somebody that's going to know what he can become. And so I'm not worried about him falling off like the face of the planet. He's going to go. I really think he's going to go day 2. I don't think he falls to day 3. Somebody's going to want to pick him up. But you got any honorable mentions?
We got to drop some names on here, but this one might be one of my favorite names in the draft. We got good old Billy Bowman Jr. out of Oklahoma. This is somebody who is a little bit on the smaller side as well, but I think he's super fast, blazing speed, tracks the ball super well, and I think he's someone that has a higher, how do I put this? Has a higher upside for getting a lot of interceptions, but also getting burned on a lot of those plays as well. A little bit more of a risky gambler, but I like Billy Bowman Jr.
That's crazy. I got this doppelganger here saying Billy Bowman Jr. as well for myself. And then I also got a teammate of Kevin Winston Jr. having to prove himself and kind of carry the secondary because of the injury, but I have Jalen Reed as well.
Great shout. Shout out to Jalen Reed, someone that I think also could be a hidden gem later on in this draft. But just like that, it's only right. We got to move on to our top 5 corners. This one, listen, this right here was probably the toughest for me, if I'm being honest. So I'm interested to see if you feel the same way. Why don't you kick us off the only way you know how, Cole?
Well, I went one of 2 ways. My brain with the 1, 2, and 3 here. I kind of wanted to go 1 for a certain reason, and then 2 kind of stay where he is, and then 3 because that's where 1 is. But then I was like, it's all about prove me wrong. I know where you're going. I know where you're going in the draft. My mock's already lined up. I'll be shocked if he doesn't go where I think he's going. But I do have Travis Hunter at number 1. Maybe on tape per se because of splitting snaps, it doesn't look like he has his moments, but you can't say and show a clip other than maybe T-Mac and go, Travis Hunter got burnt here. Well, a lot of times in clips it looks like a corner gets burned, but Colorado ran a lot of cover too, a lot more than people realize. And so there were times where Travis Hunter looked like he bails and then he jumps back and then the deep route looks open and the safety just didn't get there in time. kind of like a Georgia, Alabama Devontae Smith in overtime situation, because people thought that corner got burnt by Devontae, and that wasn't the case. It was the safety never got there, and Tua just beamed the ball on 4th and 26, mind you. But had a little shout out there from my Bama boys. But Travis Hunter, other than receivers, you'll see in the league, not many are beating his coverage. Bottom line is what I've got.
Yeah, I love that you have his grade so high because I think a lot of people like to throw shade at him for whatever reason. I think even what he showed at the position, right? Even in the limited snaps, I think this guy's a gamer, right? This is the guy that you want to be out there in clutch time situations with the game on the line. He's going to be a defensive leader. You could tell just by the way he holds his position on a lot of these different receivers. I think he commands a next level of, how do I say this? A next level of control over a lot of these routes in front of him, which I think is going to go a long way in the NFL. Now, the only thing I think that is to be worried about is, like, obviously we would like to see a little bit more consistency as far as outbreaking routes, things like that, smaller technical things. But I think he's going to, like you said, continue to rise to that occasion. And I agree with you. I think if upside wise, I love that you have him as your number one on both, because you also had him as your number one for the wide receivers, which I was genuinely surprised by. I don't think a lot of people are going in that direction. So shout out to Cole for standing on business. But this is my number two overall cornerback in the draft, and a big part about it is also because we don't know how much he's going to play. I think if he is a 4-down corner in the NFL, in theory, right? I think he has the potential to grow in those ways in a faster way than if he is participating slower on both sides of the ball. So we shall see. This is to be determined. But I think ultimately the money talks and bullshit walks. God damn it! I think we're gonna see him more receiver than at corner. But I move on to my number one overall because it's different than yours. But the guy most likely is gonna be the same, right? I don't doubt it. It's only right. My number one is Will Johnson out of Michigan. I think, right, champion, right? We got to start there, champion. But also, I just think this is somebody who has it all, right? Does well at keeping everybody in front of him, breaking up passes and coverage. And I think he just has a very technical approach to the game, stays in front of guys in a very easy way, which I think for his size is a little bit rare. I think he's an outlier in that way too. 6'2", 194, a little bit on the technical smaller side, but fast as all heck. And I think it matches his weight in that side. He never has an issue taking guys down either when it comes to tackling. I think ultimately that's something that a lot of people I see give him shade on. But I think when it comes to the next level, I think he's going to be fine with wrapping guys up as long as he's not in a situation where he's on the island with someone like Derrick Henry or one of them guys. He should be able to make it work.
I don't know many corners that are making a tackle on Derrick Henry. Let's be honest. I would say Will Johnson's more on the bigger side because he is 6'2". Most of these corners nowadays are like 5'10" to 6'1". But he is not my number two.
Wow.
He is not. And the reason why I was going to put Travis, why I said Travis Hunter was honestly going to fall to 3, and I was just going to kind of maybe put him at 1, but I was like, no, let me stand on business. Even though I bashed Travis Hunter myself with the reasons everyone kind of does as well, with the playing both ways and kind of the superstar mode, but to me, he at least can back it up versus a quarterback that I put at number 3. But I will say that I just kept looking at film on my number 2, and it's just something about, and I guess I just knock Will Johnson because there is the injury thing. So, but my number 2 is probably your number 3. It is Jahdae Barron from Texas. Like I said, a little bit shorter. He's 5'11", but he's got that weight still with him. He is a screen killer. And I know in the league they don't throw as many screens as they did in college, but NFL has started to get to where they like to do more screens. Of course, they get a little more technical with like slip screens or like inside stuff. But his catch-up speed, it looks like you've burnt him, and you have not burnt him. That is the crazy thing about it. And he also is he's very versatile. He can play in the slot if he has to. So if you're wanting to play man and you want to put like, oh, I want to stay outside, I'm gonna put my best receiver at the slot position and man, because you're not gonna bring your corner in. Oh yeah, Jahdae Barron will still come inside and follow you, and they'll just put a third corner out there on the outside. So
Mhm.
he still is comfortable in the slot on the outside. It doesn't matter. And I think that's what edged him up for me. I know Will Johnson's probably going before him, but in my opinion, I think because of the versatility that Jahdae Barron has, and then his late hands is incredible. His red zone defense is ridiculous for someone at his size.
I love that you went across all those different things because the one thing that I wanted to highlight was I think he's also really good at stopping the run too. I think he's someone that it could really close the distance well and then get guys down despite being technically small for like you say the position. It's crazy because the modern prototype of what you see guys getting drafted in the first round, particularly, they're at the taller end. But then when you see guys that are actually productive, they're around, like you said, 5'10, 5'11. So yeah, interesting that those guys keep getting knocked for those things. But yeah, Jahdae Barron, my number three, like you called it. So who's your number three?
My number three has got to be Will Johnson. I can't have him fall any lower than that. He's
Mhm.
just too great of an athlete, too great of a corner to fall down any further. And I think it's the same boat with a lot of these positions we kind of talked about, where it's like we have a definite one, maybe a definite 1-2, or even a 1-2-3, and you can change the order. A lot of times after that, it falls down. Um, but I have Will Johnson at 3. Size, play recognition. He's got the snaps to prove it, even though he had a prior injury. Like you said, champion, even though it might be a little skewed. Shout out to wanting to steal plays. You do it legally, do it like I do. Um, but I got here. He's got receiver hands. That's the other thing too. Like his break off, cutting off a route. He's running the route for the receiver and he's catching it like the receiver, but he's just taking it back to the house.
I love that you put that taking it back to the house emphasis because that's what I had circled and dotted for this guy here. I couldn't agree with you more. This is the prototypical either I'm gonna take this back and burn you, or you might burn me kind of corner. I think he's not a bad decision maker in that way, but I think he also can get ahead of himself because of his speed, right? Because he knows he can get out there and make those plays. Sometimes he could get ahead of certain plays, but yeah, I love the prospect because of the same things you said. I love this asterisk too, right? This is a guy who also, I can't wait to talk about this on my next slide. Uh, ran well at the combine too. So you got all these different factors added in. It's all going to work out well. So
Who you
all
got at
right.
number 4?
My number four, I couldn't wait to talk about this guy because this guy is known to be the fastest player, regardless of position, at the combine. I got Maxwell Hairston as my number four quarterback out of Kentucky. Another stat that I loved, he had uh, 3 interceptions returned for a touchdown, tying the Kentucky record. This is another one of those guys that will bring it back to you and hand you the ball. Right, here you go. Good luck trying it again, and that'll be demoralizing as an offense to have to go out there and face it again. I think this is someone that, because of his performance at the combine, is going to get more eyes. I think he's worth making that leap because of those things as well. I'm a little concerned about the next level play when it comes to the NFL, as far as being consistent and staying ahead of a lot of the craftier receivers. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is a receivers league, ladies and gentlemen, and it is very, very hard to put yourself in the best position to even defend simple passes, let alone to make good plays at the position. And I think there's just levels that he needs to continue to develop to be that productive 4 down player. But I think when he looks good on tape, this guy looks phenomenal. So the upside is there for sure.
Well, I'm glad you said that because at my number 4 is Maxwell Hairston as well. Great minds think alike. I got here. He's got great length. He might be 6'1", but his arm, his wingspan, I can't remember what it is, but it almost reminds me of like a point guard in basketball. His wingspan's a lot longer than some of these other guys. He's because of his speed. The Kentucky used him on the boundary for corner blitzes, or people call it Cobb blitzes, corner on boundary. Uh, And because of his speed, if a right tackle or tight end's not paying attention, he's going to sack the quarterback. And so, you get him on the right team, it works. Also, another thing I think that I could talk about for him, and you were talking about the consistency, he does get a little handsy in coverage. That's the one thing I know. So he tends to draw a lot of penalties. But even if it doesn't work out for him at corner, he's probably going to find his life catching that ball from a punt. That's something I can see him getting. So he might be in that spot at corner, maybe be like the team's substitute corner, come in on a few snaps, like 20, 30 snaps in the game, but he is mainly that punt returner. That's what I can see him doing.
I love that shout. It's only right that we move on to our fifth and final. I'll let you do the honors, Cole. Who is your fifth cornerback in the draft?
Not a big name from a big school, but he is a guy that made plays at where he's at. I love finding these guys in the draft like Mike Green and, well, Tyler Shuff's Louisville. I wouldn't say that, but any of these non-power 5 or power 4 schools because of conference realignment, but like schools like my Georgia Southern Eagles. But I've got Siobhan Ravel Jr. What kind of name is that? I love that name. From Eastern Carolina, 6'3", 195. Got good height. He's a little bit smaller, so he's slender because of that size, but I'm talking about height, the length. Now, there are injury scares. He did tear his ACL. That's what most people are worried about. I wanted to put him higher, but because of that, I could not. He's very raw, but the moment he gets polished, it is going to be a problem. And he also gives me just taller Jahdae Barron vibes on his catch-up speed is remarkable. It looks like you've burnt him, and next thing you know, he's high pointing the ball and he's making an interception.
Love that shout. Someone that I struggled to keep out of my top five, but someone who was my honorable mention. But yeah, I love the shout. I think this is somebody that is going to find himself in a sneaky team right towards the end of the set. Maybe towards the end of the. No, definitely not. Towards the middle of the end of the second round. And then he ends up being one of the more productive players on their defense. I think that's very possible. But my number five guy is someone that I just fell in love with. And I love that you went on that rant earlier too, because this is someone that I think is a little bit less heralded. But I got Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. I think this is someone that isn't as good when it comes to being that inline run defender that we spoke about earlier out of this position. But I think he's someone that just from his work in smothering stop routes, I think he'll make a career in the NFL. Dude's a dog, and he's going to stay on top of these guys and make it hard for them, even if they do end up getting that break to complete the catch. Someone that's really good in those 50-50 ball scenarios too. Like you said, turning the head at the perfect time as well, so that he's changing the way the quarterback reads the play as well. So there's a lot of different things that I like about Trey Amos, but I think this is somebody we got to keep our eyes on because once again, if a team like my Ravens could swoop in and get him with a later round pick, this is somebody that could develop into a really good player at the next level.
That's a good shout. I mean, Trey Amos used to be before the transfer portal, the way it is. He used to be a Crimson Tide, Alabama, and then he transferred over to Ole Miss, and he did his thing over there. He is my first honorable mention on top of Azarai Thomas from Florida State and then Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, all three of those. And I think that's just like that we talk about. It's a receivers league. Receivers are deep. This running back class is deep. Our edge defenders are deep. Linebackers are deep. This corner class is deep too.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm here muted. Another guy. Speaking of how deep this class is, give me Darian Porter as
Oh,
well.
yes.
What's that school again? Iowa State.
There it is. The
There we go.
Cyclones.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The Cyclones. But we move on to our top five offensive line. This is criminal, right? I think next year we got to figure out a way to split this up, right? Because this is there's so many different intricacies with between guards and tackles alone that makes this tough to loop all these guys in together, right? It's a lot of premier positions here, ladies and gentlemen. But we are the ones that have to make these tough decisions to give you these names. So it's okay. We will survive. With that being said, Cole, why don't you lead us off? Who's your number one
Oh,
offensive
man.
lineman in the
These
trenches?
these top three, I went through and crossed 1, 2, 3 out multiple times, and I had to settle my heart on where I think the best, most versatile offensive lineman. Well, maybe not say most versatile. There's somebody else that's most versatile on this board, but I would probably say because of the versatility and the amount of snaps that they had, I had to give them the nod at number one. And I had to go with Will Campbell from LSU.
The consensus. He's my guy as well.
Now, he originally was my number two, but I had to bump him back up at one as I just kept watching other film on other guys. And I just was like, he's the guy you want. He's the guy you need. 6'6, 323. He's a little high in his stance, but for some reason, it doesn't affect him when the defenders try to abuse and take advantage of it. Great hands. Like I said, versatile on the offensive line. Used to play guard, had played a lot of tackle for LSU. He is left tackle ready. That is the key thing that I put. He is left tackle ready. Stonewall's elite defenders. If you look at the amount of these defensive ends that we talk about, the edge rushers that the SEC had, and to know that I think he gave up in his career 5 or 6 sacks his whole career at LSU, and might have been less than that.
Nuts. That's nuts.
So if that's your number one, I gotta let you do it. Who's your number two?
Yes, sir. Before we move on, I just got to say I love that you made the distinction because I think it's hard to find another left tackle. Period. Right until things figure out. Hey, there's a lot of guys. Hey, we'll get them over there. We'll find a way to shift them that way, and it makes sense, right? There's a lot of guys athletically that I think can make it work. But when you think of the prototype, I got the bar room guy that everyone double takes at when they realize they got to fight him. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you have that guy. You got to secure him early. I also won't be surprised if he doesn't end up playing left tackle for whatever team he gets picked and just gets switched over, just because you kind of plug this guy wherever you need him because of how versatile he is, like you said. But we move on to our second, and this one's easy as well. Sorry, this one is easy. I'm going Armand Membu out of Missouri. I think obviously this guy's getting a lot of top 10 buzz in the draft, and I think rightfully so. A clear right tackle, and I hope he ends up staying there just because obviously more of the typical 6'4, 330 size, but insanely really like needs to tap into the potential when it comes to being a raw technically, but an insanely athletic specimen at this position, something that he tested really well in the combine, and I think the draft buzz has continued to swell around him because of it. So give me Armin Membu number two.
He was originally my one. He was originally my two. He is now down to three for me. I will get to it in a second. But my number two is Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. This is the guy, and the reason why I have him at two for myself is the amount of run power he has in his body is insane to me. He is a linebacker's nightmare if he's getting to you in the second level. Most linebackers, you think an offensive lineman getting to the second level is a nightmare. No, this is a nightmare. You are a lot of times on your back. You could be a big man at linebacker, and you're still probably getting put on your back by this man. Kelvin Banks is ridiculous. Run block demon. You got teams that want to run old school guard tackle counter with the guard kicking out and the tackle wrapping. That's your guy. And he still has good pass block, but I think by the position, and that's where we're going to talk about where this is going to get interesting with these 1, 2, 3s that we have here is when do they get taken in the draft and by who? Because it's really, even though it's best available in the position you may need, it's also do you want the guy that can do it all, the guy that can run block the best, or the guy that can pass block the best? And that's the thing for me is that we're going to see, and it's going to get very interesting. But I have Kelvin Banks Jr. as my number two.
Hey, I would be a gentleman and lead off with number three, but you already took mine. Kelvin Banks Jr. was my number three, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think if it wasn't for the prospects ahead of him, this guy would be getting a lot more buzz. I do think there's an argument that there's probably two guys, right? That you could argue could have been above here. which we'll talk about later. Obviously, there's some honorable mentions, even considering just because, like I said, two very deep position classes. How about we leave it at that? But big fan of Kelvin Banks and what he was able to do at Texas. And once again, 6'5, 315, a little bit leaner, but plays insanely athletically for the position. We'll move on with your number 3, Cole.
Well, my number 3, I talked about it. It is Armand Membu. I put on their right tackle, and that's the main thing. Unless you got someone like the Miami Dolphins drafting, your right tackle is still always important, but like that's like the guy because of Tua being left-handed. Shout out to the lefty question again. Uh, Good center of gravity, hands outside a little bit, so he does get a little handsy. But he has next level awareness when it comes to picking up complex blitzes that a defense shows. Any type of backside run where a running back can cut back off of him, he's very good at that as well.
You love to see it. Shout out to Armand Membu. We move on to our number 4, where things get interesting, things get tough. Man, there's somebody who's not getting the love, right? He's not even on my top 5, but I think I argued about him in this slot more than anything, but I ended up settling on probably the consensus pick out of Ohio State, Josh Simmons, 6'5, 317. Once again, right tackle, ladies and gentlemen. We're not going left side, but I think he actually has the frame to move there. The issue is he's also going to have to add a little bit of size, which is crazy to say at 314. But I think he's super agile at the position, which you love to see. I think he's someone that struggles with what we've talked about earlier in some spots as far as having that insane run power. I think his run power is really good, but I think I don't know if it's what you would know. There's something to this as far as size and distribution of power, right? Some guys have it different. If you're longer, then it's going to be a different distribution of power. But that's just my thoughts. I think there's once again a case for a couple different guys here. I think this is where these guys are going to be rated so high because of how important these positions are in the NFL. But I also think this is sort of the delineation line, in my opinion, from what I think should be a top 15, top 20 pick. And then from here on out, it's like guys that have that upside at the position. But in my opinion, just because the need, right, they're going to get drafted probably higher than I would even put them. So bang for your buck. I would say arguably you could say this is probably the best because you could get him at a cheaper spot, but he's still giving you that high level production. Either way, I think it's a solid pick for number 4. Who's yours?
I will say that's a good shout. The way I did look at this because of us combining the tackles with the interior offensive line of center and guards is I went with who is most likely going to be picked first. And, the 3 can kind of get shuffled around. You're more stuck to who you think is going to be where. I think it could really change. But those 3 guys are all tackles. And then when you carried on into a 4th tackle, of course, Will Campbell could be inside if he has to, but most likely he'll play left tackle. Once I got done with those 3, then I went, all right, who is the guy? Who is the best? They might not be next off the board like Josh Simmons, who I have as an honorable mention, not even in the top 5. But I'm like, who is that guy that's going to become somebody who's going to be a later pick, even if it's not in the first round, it can be in the second round, but it's going to be somebody that's probably going to make multiple Pro Bowls, potentially going to be a Super Bowl winner, maybe multiple, depending on where he goes. And gives me kind of like Landon Dickerson vibes. Used to snap the ball for Bama, moved to guard, versatile, had played tackle for Bama for a little bit too. Just the most versatile guy. And he did not blow up until he got to that Reese's Senior Bowl where he put a lot of these first round draft picks that are edge defenders and stonewalled all of them. Give me Gray Zabel from North Dakota State.
Dude, I'm fired up right now because I've been waiting since pick 3 to talk about Greg Zabel. I think this is somebody who deserves recognition because, once again, this is probably the least sexy of the offensive line positions, right? But I think this guy is an absolute lightning rod. I think this guy consistently has pop on the offensive end and really is an anchor as far as building a run game, right? If you can build a run game around a guy like Greg Zabel, so I think the size for the position is phenomenal too. I think he's somebody that if you really tried, right? If you said, "Hey, let me close my eyes, let me figure this out. Let's get you with a trainer. Let's work this." You might be able to move this guy over to left tackle. That's how big this guy is. I would like to see him stay right where he is, though, just because I think, like you said, he's going to be a difference maker at this position. And I feel bad for wherever he ends up. Whoever he ends up getting drafted to, I hope it's not in my division because he's going to be wreaking havoc for years to come. So Greg Zabel is my guy. This is the guy I was referring to that I wanted to put at 3, right?
I
But
wanted to
it's
put him
hard.
at
It's
2
hard,
behind Will
especially.
Campbell, I'll be honest. But let me talk real quick about some things for him. Versatile. He did play left tackle his senior year, so he has the proof in the game film for showing that, hey, I can do this. Do I think that that's where he belongs? No. Can he do it if the team needs him? Yes. If he has to slide out and then somebody else has got to go interior because of an injury, then that's fine. But he belongs inside of that B gap in, man. Hey, he just sit there bully. I put all caps bully. Reese's Senior Bowl standout. Um, I put he can be handsy on linebackers, but the only reason why he was handsy is he was trying to put their face in the dirt. Uh, Complex blitzes he could pick up. I'm telling you, man, he's just as smart too. He picks up all the complex blitzes with defensive ends trying to crash on the inside and letting the D tackles go out. They call that a T and E stunt or a ET phone home. Uh, Other than that, I would put yeah, I mean he's just the guy for me. I like him a lot. Who you got at number 5?
I love that you asked me that because I already told you, God damn it, Greg Zabel is my number 5. But just like that, I get to give you my honorable mention right off the top because you're not going to be able to 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 take the chance away from me to talk about my guy Tyler Booker out of Alabama. Once again, the least sexy of these position groups, but I think he is very similar to Greg Zabel. Is going to be able to, hey, I would say not the top end athlete that Greg Zabel is, but I think able to be impactful in building a run off of this guy. I think he's that level of player. So shout out to Tyler Booker. But go, who is
My
your
number
number
5,
5?
I had to give my Tide guys some love. It is Tyler Booker. He had no honorable mention here. He is number 5. I put he is a guard all day long. Take him to IHOP. He is serving pancakes.
Yes, sir. We flipping him. We flipping him on the grill, baby. So what was your favorite thing about Tyler Booker at
Well,
Alabama?
the main thing for me, and this is just personal gripes for Bama not wanting to run the ball. Of course, Bama's known for running the ball. Of course, new head coach, the GOAT's gone, different play style, different quarterback, obviously with Milrow and the running quarterback stuff. But when we did run the ball with the running backs, it looked good. Justice Haynes left, went to Michigan. We still have Jam Miller, but Tyler Booker was just always just running people over. And on the amount of yards per carry our running backs got, I'm like, why are we not still doing this? Please just run the ball. I'm screaming at the TV. I'm trying to be in coach mode and be all this wisdom and kind of be unbiased, but still watch the game and just notice things and grow. But then I'm like, still going like, why are we not running the ball? We got Tyler Booker, man. But because of it, though, that's his specialty is run blocking. So his pass pro is a little iffy. If you stunt inside, though, you will be punished. The amount of times I saw inside stunts and he flattened people completely off their back. It, I mean, I don't. He's not going to do that in the league per se, but a lot of those guys have a lot more weight to him. But he's going to at least shell shock some people whenever he pops them.
Yep. This is one of the most fascinating position groups just for me to run through on the film because like most of the time when people are watching tape, I'll be real, I'm like this too. We're not looking at these guys, right? A lot of the times they end up being more visible with the way the play develops, right? Because you see that side cracking, right? But majority of the times, that's not your first read on the field. I think all these guys our first reads in the how do we say that, in the offensive team's playbook, right? Where we're like, hey, we got these guys, but guess what? Like, we need as a defense to prepare for these guys because we're gonna lose because of them. It's not because of what the position players do per se. These are the guys that are gonna be fucking us up all game. So really excited to see where our top fives end up in the NFL, because I think this is once again, especially a tackle. I think we got a lot of different raw guys that we can mention as honorable mentions.
I've got a
But I
lot.
think for offensive line in general, this is going to be a huge year. And I won't be surprised if a lot of the guys we spoke about end up in the top round of the draft. Who's some of your honorable
Oh man,
mentions,
I've
though,
got
Corey?
6 because of us mixing these positions. Obviously, I've got Josh Simmons from Ohio State as a tackle. I've got Josh Connerly Jr. from Oregon. There's another Oregon guy. He's a tackle as well. Charles Grant. There's always a name at a school that you'd never hear of. Kind of like people called it the Bill Belichick offensive lineman. He'll come in like the 3rd round, and he ends up being the best offensive lineman in like the next 15 years. Charles Grant from William and Mary, and is a versatile person. He played tackle, but also played inside. Then I've got Marcus Mabo. I think it might be just Mbow from Purdue. He's a tackle as well. Donovan Jackson from Ohio State, the interior offensive lineman. And then I've got Jonah. Oh boy, I'm trying to say his last name. Savinai. So yeah, there you go.
Sabanane. Yes, sir.
Saviane from Arizona. Dude was a dog. Huge. He's huge.
Mhm. And to be able to mirror at that size, like he's consistently mirroring guys that are attacking him which you love to see.
Oh boy. Here we go. We get to go to the interior of the defense, man. Oh my goodness. Well, I don't want to steal your thunder. We all
No, no, I
we all
love
we
it. I
all
love it. I
know.
love it. You were giving these
We all
names
know.
because there's only
We
one more.
Oh, you
There's
got
only
one
one
more?
more that I wanted to share with you.
Who you
Only
got?
one more. And this is a shout. Once again, we're going deep. We're going deep with the names here. But give me Ozzy Trapillo out of Boston College. I think this is someone that has started at left tackle in his career, got moved around, and shown to be productive and versatile in those different positions. He got moved around through the rest of his career. Obviously, ended up being right tackle towards the latter end of his production at college. I think this is somebody who, once again, you're getting the dog out there, and no matter what, he's going to be, once again, serving, sending dudes straight to the ground. You got to touch earth when you're playing against these guys. So that's my honorable mention. But there's, like you said, because there's so many different guys that I really like, that I think are going to be productive players at the next level. But man, we got a lot of guys to talk about at the defensive line, which I'm sure probably one of your favorite positions to talk about. So why don't you
Well,
lead us off, Corey?
it's
Who's
got
your
to be
number
the
one?
guy who's going to be somewhere in that top 10 come draft day. Well, give me Mason Graham from Michigan.
Yes, sir. He is also my number one. So the consensus number one.
Not much to say. We know about the whole injuries. We kind of went over it in that very first episode, but just the double team monster. You got to do 2v1 versus him. And even then, he's still splitting double teams. Moves very, very well. How about this? I'm not even giving you a chance. You like taking it from me sometimes. I'm going straight to number 2. And this is not a number 2 I don't think most people even want to talk about. I just, the more I watched this film, the more I just saw how ridiculous he was at what he was doing at his size. Give me Darius Alexander from Toledo. 6'4", 310
Wow, at number two.
at number 2. Abuses the guards. Relentless effort. He is too fast to be that big. Too fast. Let me double check real quick. I don't want my facts being wrong. 495. 495. You don't got a lot of guys. I mean, your offensive linemen, your best offensive linemen are getting sub 5s. And you're telling me at 6'4", 310, 315 that he's doing that?
And coming downfield on you,
hands up
good
to
luck.
disrupt. That's the one thing that I put, and I think that's what jumped it for me immediately. It's little things like that. If he's not able to cause enough disruption in the pass game for pass rush, he's going to get his hands up, and the amount of pass deflections off of quarterbacks has been ridiculous in what I saw. Running back chipping, no help. Don't even try. There's no point. And then he shoots gaps very well in the run. If you're a gap team, it's not good. If you're his own team, guess what? It's still not good. He's going to do his job.
Yes, sir. I love that you gave me that shout number 2 because he was my honorable mention, but I was about to get as pumped up as you about him because I think he is a little bit raw. But the dude's insane out there with all the things he's able to do. When it looks good, god damn it looks great. How about that? But my number 2, oh man, this was tough for me as well. But god damn it, I'm glad you went with the underdog pick because it gave me the opportunity to talk about my dog. God damn it, Walter Nolen out of Ole Miss. Listen to this, man. 14 and a half tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks last season. Also a great run defender. I'm a big fan of what this guy is going to produce at the next level. I think you can pick this player in the first round and be happy about the upside you have moving forward on top of the production you're going to get next season, which I think is rare out of a rookie. So give me Walter Nolen.
That's crazy. Walter Nolen is my number 4 on the list. My number 4. I'll go into detail when I get down to my number 4. Who you got at number 3?
You're breaking my brain here, but I think if I said anybody else besides the person I'm about to say, it would be a crime because we got another one of them Oregon boys here, the 6'5", 313 Derek Harmon. How about this, right? We'll leave it at this. You want to talk about pancakes? Not only does this guy serve but guess what? He's not getting served pancakes. We'll start there. But this guy stacks defenders, right? While we're talking about flapjacks, we're stacking defenders, right? You need multiple guys to try to block him, and even then, good luck, because I've seen him move multiple guys in that way. I think he has freak level athleticism and upside. The only thing that I didn't like is I think he is someone that I thought at least gets frustrated and can find himself sort of checking out towards the end of games. And that's when you need him the most. So I would say consistency is the key here for Derek Harmon, but I think he's going to be a producer at the next level no matter what, even if it's just in bursts early. Give me Derek Harmon to wreak havoc.
Derek Harmon is my number 5. Yes, sir. You know my 4, you know my 5. We'll go into details. The one person I haven't talked about is my number 3. And my number 3 is Mason Graham's teammate, Kenneth Grant. Give me Kenneth Grant. Dude is a menace. Weighs the most out of this defensive tackle class. So he's not going to flash you with any speed, but he just eats bodies after bodies from the offensive line. A 304 or almost 350 is unbearable. And the fact that he's still moving at that size, he's still moving. I want to pull up his 40 real fast. I know he ran it. Oh goodness. Let me not take too much time. Maybe he didn't run it. I stand corrected. I guess he didn't run it, but I know it would probably be somewhere like 508. I mean, like to get that close to 5 flat is ridiculous at that size. Just it looks like he can be stonewall, but he's just so big. But he's aware when the ball's thrown. So once again, that's where I ranked those higher. Those, if you notice, my 2 and my 3 moved up because of their awareness of the quarterback throwing the ball and getting their hands up. Because a defensive lineman that can do that, if they're not causing actual pressure per se, maybe the ends are doing that. That goes a long way with any intermediate crossing route, mesh, digs. It doesn't matter what it is. If their hands are up and they're batting a ball, that's an instant loss of down, instantly. So it takes bodies for the rest of the defense to do their job. That's the main thing that I've got for him.
And you took my 4th overall player, right? So we're just moving down these boards now. At this point, we've got your whole list. But this was my fourth guy because I agree. I think there's a lot of people sleeping on him just because I don't know. Maybe it's the second guy on the team, right? So you're not really. It's easier on film to see certain things pop out. But if you're looking deep, you know what you're looking at, ladies and gentlemen. And I agree. This guy is going to be a big time producer at the next level, and it's just someone that's also kind of like how do you say this as politely as possible? A bumper car out there, right? He can hit different offensive linemen and just bounce right off and continue to find another angle to get towards the runner, either the running back or the quarterback. So I think great shouts there. Finally, we move on to what would be my number five because we already got yours. Um, this one was tough. I went back and forth, but I ultimately went with upside and I went with Darius Alexander. I think he's better at rushing the passer than his college statistics may suggest. I think in some ways it is a team effort, right, on defense, and we got to figure some things out at Toledo. God damn it! But all things considered, I think ultimately this guy is going to be a player at the next level that is super athletic. I would like to see him put on a little bit of size, but I think still solid at 305. I think this is somebody that if you are picking him to be the anchor of your defense at this stage, he is not going to be successful. I think if he is akin to what the Eagles have going on, right? If he is the sixth or seventh guy in the room, you have an all NFL type of defensive room, in my opinion. So something to consider there as far as the player you're getting today. But the upside, once again, I think this guy is going to be wreaking havoc. And I think he's going to, regardless of even if he ends up in a shitty situation on defense, he's going to shine just because I think his breakaway speed is fascinating to watch as a defender. But that's all I got. Who do you want to add as your honorable
Before I do
mentions?
that, let me get some notes for Walter Nolan at number 4 and Derek Harmon at number 5. For me, Walter Nolan, even though I pulled those other guys because they get their hands up, Walter Nolan, his pad level's elite, explosion is really well. His redirection, his awareness of where the ball is when they're running. Uh, but for me, he's not as consistent, and he sometimes gets complacent as the biggest thing for me. There were plays that looked like, I mean, D linemen look like, oh, they took this play off. Well, if it's way out of their way, understandable, unless you got some freaks or just some go-getters. But it was a little more often than not that it happened. And I know with Ole Miss's D line that they had, I know that they had some go-getters and guys that are going to be in this draft class. And they got guys in the future that are going to be going too. So maybe that could be it as well. And it could also be a coaching thing because of the way Lane Kiffin is sometimes. But it didn't look as appeasing sometimes. It just looked like he was just like, especially when some plays were in reach. And then for Derek Harmon, just cloud the running lanes. You're not running through him. Cloud the running lanes. He's fast for his size too. You talked about that. Any kind of stunts to the outside, don't let him do that. He might be fast for his size, but he does not like to get lean. He wants to get his hands on and use his power and just rush through you. And then some of these tackles kind of stonewalled him if he did try to jump outside, and that was the main thing for that. But I got my honorable mentions. I got 3. I got Tyleek Williams from Ohio State. I got TJ Sanders from South Carolina, and I got Joshua Farmer from Florida State.
Wow, and you gave me the runway to still shout out my guy Shamar Turner at
Yeah.
Texas A&M. There's a lot of different guys. I think also at this position that are gonna find themselves probably getting drafted late, right? Not getting drafted early at all, but being real productive at the next level. Just because I think this is a sneaky deep draft, right? All these guys are really good prospects coming into the NFL. So Cole, this was a blast, man. I can't believe we done did it again, right? Done turned in a third spectacular 2025 NFL preview for all of you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for staying locked in with us and checking out all the things we had to say about these prospects. Look forward to our mock draft coming out before the actual NFL draft, as all the buzz for the draft continues to get heightened as we reach one of my favorite days of the year. God damn it. I can't wait. Cole, is there anything else you have to say
I
before
do.
we
I
get out
got
of here?
one question. It's going to leave the people on a cliffhanger. It got to set some rules before we get this mock situated. Are we wanting to predict where we think the trades are going to fall? Because you heard about the trivia question from the episode 1 into episode 2. We know there's going to be some trades. It's in our human nature. Do we want to try to predict that, or we just want to do some raw picks?
Ooh, I'm down to predict trades.
Definitely
I think
changes the
it
orders.
can get off the rails, right? That's the issue. It can get off the rails. I think we need to sort of, as a collective, right, have a discussion about whether or not it makes sense for both teams, right? Whether or not we can put ourselves in the mind space to make it work. I'm down for it, but let's not get too crazy here, right? Let's not go around flipping guys every pick we get a chance, because then it'll be a
I'd
little hard
say
to follow.
maybe
But I love it. Let's try to preview
maximum
as best
2
as we can.
trades that we force in our mock if we would like.
Yep, and we could also just keep that in mind too, as far as just a little disclaimer, like,
You'd be
hey,
like,
this
"Oh
is
yeah,
one,
this my
this is a
you
pick that
had
may be
him at
on the
you had him
move,
at
right?
8 or you had him at 7. I have him at 5 because this team jumped up here." That kind of thing.
Yeah, I
I
like
just
that. I
wanted
like
to
that.
clarify and make sure. Also, don't forget to follow at the_real_J Cole at Twitter and Instagram.
You heard the smooth man himself. Make sure you're following the brand, most importantly, at OTS Media Co. on all social media platforms, OTS Media on YouTube. But just like that, we're out of here for another spectacular edition of the Sideline Guys. We'll see you very soon, right? Within the next 12 hours to talk more about what to expect for this NFL draft. And just remember, right? There's no way. There's no way that Atlanta goes quarterback this year, right? At least we got that. So hey, our draft predictions might be a little more clearer than they were last year. So with that all being said, we'll catch you guys very soon. Peace.